episode 2. All things PG, all things. How we doing, Kyle?
We're doing quite well, Mr. Sir. We're back. Today we're going to be talking about Isaiah's book. You know, we always love to keep love, positivity, happiness, but today we got to dig a little deep, get into Isaiah's experience at the Pleasantville and Camden football game of last year. So take us through a little bit of the book. What motivated you to write this? Because I know it was a tough time. Because I remember honestly just sitting on my bed and I saw the link to the football game and I thought it was highlights, and then it said Pleasantville Camden shooting. So take us through what happened that night, Isaiah.
Yeah. So what happened that night was, it was supposed to be great. It was Friday Night Lights, second round of the playoffs. Winner goes to the championship. Camden versus Pleasantville, can't get any better. And it was a good game, too. Both teams came to play. Their defenses were both locked down. And third quarter, it's about 8:29, a couple minutes before the fourth. And that's just when you hear some gunshots go off. And that's when high school game is supposed to be a triumph. It turns into a tragedy. A tragedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was taken at the hands of other people, too. Like, that's so negative, and we just live in such a negative world now, and everything is just it's not good. I don't like the world we live in anymore, because everything, like, now there has to be metal detectors at games and metal detectors to get into schools, and it's not what you want to live in.
Yeah.
So take us through chapter by chapter of the book, like what happened throughout the game.
Yeah, so in chapter 1, I really talk about going down to the game, driving there with my grandpapa and his friend, talking about the excitement, how excited I was that day for it, and then I'll explain, how the events changed and when the shooting began. Then I move into chapter 2. I just go really in depth on the shooting and everything I saw, heard, felt, what I did. That entire chapter is dedicated to the shooting and everything that took place. And then in chapter 3, I kind of take it to the car ride back home. Very quiet car ride. I expressed my emotions in that, and, just how different it was, that specific car ride back from a sporting event. And then in chapter 4, I kind of talk about the days following, what I did the day after, the next few days in school, going to a football game a few weeks after, all that kind of stuff. And then in chapter 5, I talk about, get a little bit more personal about it, talk about later, waits for no one, and talk about doing what you're passionate about now, and, listening to God's voice, and, doing what makes you happy, and really, making things right now and not waiting, and that's what I really wanted people to know. And, I could have said, when I'm out of college, I'll write a book, or when I'm 40, I'll write a book. No, I want to do it now. We want to get things done now. We want to bring God's love to the world now. We're not going to wait for later. We're going to pray about it, and bring love into the world now. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're really religious on here, so stick with God.
Yes, so I remember when you, Roland, and I were going to the field to film that video, and obviously Roland and I weren't a part of the shooting, but we could just, I don't want to say we could see, but we had the feeling that we were at that game, and we could just see, like, every time we looked at you, I know Roland got nervous because I got nervous too. Like, we just felt like you. Like, we felt we were in your shoes during the game and, like, what happened, because we just saw how shook it made you feel. So, take us back to when you, Roland, and I were at the field. Like, what was going through your head?
Yeah, we were there to, film that video, which, hopefully we'll finish up and be able to put on our channel. But being back there, I just felt all the emotions of being there again. Everything from the touchdown, I could hear people squash from the touchdowns. I could hear the benches erupt. I could hear, the shooting and people crying. I could hear the gunshots. I could hear everything. It was almost like, we went twice, once during the day, once during the night, and especially during the nighttime, I felt it. And during the day, I kind of felt it too. But it just was a, deja vu moment all over again. I could look in the stands and point out where I was sitting at in the bleachers, and I could point out everything on that field. I could show you where players were at when the shooting happened, and just very mental imagery of everything that happened. So it was just a very surreal moment, very different, and uh, weird feeling, but it's just being back out there made me want to just be like, I got to do something that people just never forget this. But this can't just be something that is known and people just say prayers up and then just move on. I have to do something that people will never forget.
Yeah, I can only imagine because, like I said, we were there. Roland and I were there with you, and we could just feel it. So
Yeah.
I read through the book. It is a great read. I know a lot of people that have read through the book, and if you want it, I will link that in the description. So take us through a little bit of the name. How did you come up with this name?
Through my eyes, I was throwing some names around in my head, remembering Pleasantville, some other names like kind of similar to that, but then I was just like, let me just through my eyes, the experience of being there through my own eyes, not through a magazine interview, through a TV interview, but through my own book. I control the writing, I control how many pages it's on, I control everything, just my experience through my own two eyes.
Mm-hmm. And I honestly do remember word for word what the man said. That was given the presentation when we were still at PVI about the shooting, that at least, not you might be, but at least one of you guys in this room is going to be a part of an active shooting. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you didn't think it was you, because I never thought it would be me, and I still pray to this day that it's not going to be me. But take us through what happened, what was going through your mind through that presentation, and then what happened at the football game.
Yeah, but that presentation was really good. He really knew what he was talking about. And, it was just unfortunate that he had to bring up those numbers and, tactics for if we were in an active shooting. But nothing will ever get you ready for an active shooting. But it's crazy because that was one of the only things running through my mind when everything was taking place and I was hiding behind the bleachers, was that I could just hear his voice saying that over and over and over again. So that was just something that was very impactful, at the time. I guess, it was just when he said that, he was talking to me, specifically to me, at least one of you, and I was that one, so.
Yeah, like I was saying, he didn't say, there's a possibility, there might be. He said, at least one of you guys, and that, I remember hearing it in his voice. It was a promise, and, I mean, that's not something you ever want to think about, because that is just scary to even have to process in your brain, so.
It just shows you how long we've come far. We've got a long way to go. It just shows you how long we have to go when it comes to this topic. There's many places we can start, whether it's mental health, whether it's gun control, whether it's many different areas, but we've just got a long way to go where this comes, because we've turned on the TV every day, see someone else getting shot, getting killed, whether it's a kid or an adult. Mm-hmm. In this situation, a 10-year-old was shot, a 15-year-old was shot, but he glad that he was alive. And we just have so many problems and issues that we just need to come together and put pressure on our world leaders and our politicians to make consistent and effective change, not change that's going to, be effective for a day, but we need change that's going to, for when me and you have kids and we and you have grandkids, they can have a safer world to live in.
Yeah, I definitely agree, because I can only be in your mom's shoes right now, having to think about you being at that football game, because I was just scared being your friend, knowing that you were at that game. So it was, I just remember sitting in my chair. I can only imagine, but take us through what was going through your head when you had to think about your grandpop and his friend being there. I know you wanted to get out of there as fast as you could, so take us through having to go back.
Yeah, man, when those shots went off, I hopped off those bleachers and I was ready to just get to that exit and just book it. But they were still there, and a lot of his friends were still there. They're all Camden High alumni, and they support their school a lot for football and basketball. But I knew I couldn't leave them there because, at the time, I didn't know who had a gun and if more people were going to start shooting. So I couldn't, just leave him there. So I was very scared, but it was a relief to see that they were all okay. And it's just that, including my grandpa and his friend, there's so many people were probably affected that night, because somebody, people probably could have post-traumatic stress from that, and even people who weren't shot, somebody could have had a heart attack hearing those gunshots,
Yeah.
So many other things could have happened that, I'm glad, and, it's a blessing they didn't, but it's just when you do and commit selfish acts, they have an effect so much greater than you'll ever know.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that one. But as you said, there was a 10-year-old and a 15-year-old involved. thankfully, the 15-year-old was made it through alive, but sadly, Micah, the 10-year-old, he did
Yeah.
not. And so, take us through what was going through your head, having to fathom what happened to Micah.
Yeah, that was just very, very heart wrenching, heartbreaking because 10-year-old boy, I was 10 years old one time, and just going to Friday Night Lights. I was him going to Friday Night Lights. Wanting to be like the football players out there, and for him to just have to just lay lifeless on the bleachers, and then those are his last breaths, and he dies days later in the hospital, and the rest of us we're kind of still living our lives. We still have to go to school. We have to still. So I wasn't okay those next few days. I was just thinking about him, and just like, Lord, please let him live. And then the Lord called him home. The Lord had a greater plan. I just have to trust in His plan. But that's just very unfortunate that the act of somebody else would cause a 10-year-old to lose his life.
Yeah, and like you said, you were 10 years old. I was 10 years old. People
Yeah.
watching this were 10 years old. We had big dreams because we still have big dreams as we speak right now, and I'm sure everyone out there does too. And I'm sure being a 10-year-old, he had dreams too, and unfortunately, they were cut short because of someone else's actions. And like you said, like it was at the hands of someone else.
Yeah.
That's sad, and it like whether or not it's a one-on-one shooting, it's a group shooting. I honestly don't see change because not enough people speak out about it because it's numb to society right now. It'll go over and over and over again, and then the next day will come, and then it'll happen again, and then.
And it's just something that's been kind of normalized almost.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in school. We have to prepare for a lockdown, and we practice barricading doors and barricading windows. And if somebody can knock over the barricade, what we have to do, and if this happens, what we have to do, and if that happens, what we have to do. It's kind of just normal. In middle school, and high school, when the school shootings were really heightened, it was just like it just was nothing that's really new. It's just something that we've been doing for forever. And it's kind of sad now because in a lot of those drills I can remember that, people kind of just didn't take them as serious anymore because people were just so used to them. But when you're so used to stuff you're so used to stuff, it doesn't really become, you forget the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So, I think that's just really sad. And it's kind of just sad as how from kindergarten to our senior year of high school, that's all we did was practice school shootings and lockdowns. And our parents and grandparents, they didn't have to practice that. So I think we just really need to come together and, like I said, put pressure on our politicians and really, like Dr. Seuss said, unless someone like you really cares, nothing is going to change. And that's with anything. And like I said, we can beat around the bush and say never again and say all these phrases and this and that, but we have to make consistent and effective change that will create a safer environment today and for future generations to come.
Yeah, and like you were saying, in middle school and high school and whatnot, like growing up, we were always told, like when we were younger, oh, hide from the man with the water gun, or hide from this guy with a sprayer or whatever. But growing up, it's like looking back on it, it's like, wow, they really just tried to play us pretty much. Like you're hiding from a school shooter who has the ability to take your life. And then getting to high school, it really hit me because, like you said, everyone just kind of got used to it, so it wasn't taken as seriously. But then looking back on it, having to hide from the man with the water gun, it's sad because you never know, like the guy or girl that could be walking throughout the hallway with a gun trying to take people's lives. He or she might be doing the drills with you. You never know.
Yeah. I think another thing, too, is that, with the mental health crisis, it's just crazy because a lot of these people just have mental health problems. And, they just don't really know what to do. And a lot of people just think that this is their last resort to doing things. And, we just need to really come together and just love people, let them know that, don't give up on yourself and don't give up on life because, somebody needs you in life. Like there was this quote that, your smile can mean the difference between a good or bad day for somebody else. So, you really have to just really love everybody. And I think that's just really important when it comes to this topic, too.
Yeah, and I have an example of literally being nice to someone and it impacting me. I was driving through a Dunkin' line last week, and I let a lady go in front of me. The line was kind of long, but I let her go in front of me. And then when I got up to the window, the lady in the window was like, "Oh, the lady in front of you paid for your order." And I looked down and I thought to myself, I was like, "Why?" And I immediately called my mom. She didn't answer, but I thought to myself, I was like, "Why did that lady pay for my food?" And then I thought and thought, and I was like, "Is it because I let her go in front of me in line?" And I thought to myself, I was like, "That was such a little act," and that little act just, I guess, it triggered her to just to be nice back, and
Yeah.
that's got to go on throughout everywhere.
That's important. You don't have to hand somebody $100,000 for
Mhm.
somebody's day to be made. I think it's kind of like, God blesses us every single day,
Mhm.
and with those blessings, we shouldn't be selfish with them. Each time God blesses us, we should lend a hand back and pull somebody else with us. Each one teach one. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I'm gonna bring God into that example. Like I was thinking, like, I wonder if God just he shed his blessing upon her because it was a nice act of me to do, but I really wasn't expecting her to do that back because it was something that's so regular, but I guess it sparked her just to do something nice back to me. So
Yeah, God will use people to bless you.
yeah, he will.
That's for sure. So
He will.
God is the greatest.
Mhm.
God over everything.
There's no beating him. If anyone out there thinks there's anything higher, like, sorry, sorry.
I remember, and I love him, but I remember when Deontay Wilder, he was getting ready to box Tyson Fury, and he told Tyson Fury, he said, when we fight this weekend, not even God will be able to save you from it. Which, obviously he wasn't being literal, but you just don't put stuff like that in the atmosphere. We know what happened that weekend. Tyson Fury wore him out.
Yeah.
He got worn out. So God is the greatest. Never question God's plan.
Mm-hmm. So honestly, I don't have anything else for today, Jafe. Do you have anything else?
No, I just want to thank everybody for watching today. Thank you everybody for buying my book. I hope if you don't already have it, you'll get it. The link will be in the description.
I will link everything down there.
Definitely.
Instagrams, Twitters, the book once again. And make sure you guys watch out for a clothing line. We are really working hard on that.
As well as some other content.
Mm-hmm.
And also, another fun fact, you go on Lokai and use my code ZAY242, you'll get a discount on all your bracelets. So check that out.
Oh yeah, he is an ambassador, so.
And look for some other content on this channel. We're going to start being a lot more active.
Mm-hmm.
And next episode 3, we'll have a guest. So, as always, from the PG grounds, keep it PG.
Peace.